everything just falls in line. We live and learn from our mistakes. The deepest cuts are in our faith. Now I believe there comes a time when everything just falls in line. We live and learn from our mistakes. The deepest cuts are in our faith. Now I believe there comes a time when everything just falls in line. We live and learn from our mistakes. The deepest cuts are healed by faith. Now I believe.
ReneMarie Stroke of Luck. I'm ReneMarie. We had a little switch in our production this morning. Jim from Village Connection couldn't join us early this morning. What we're going to do is we're going to broadcast and then send him the files, and he'll be streaming through Village Connection Network at 12 and 1 o'clock. Our shows will be rebroadcasting. So it's another way for us to get more people to watch and everything, but we're really happy to have this opportunity today. Judy put together, once again, a tremendous show. We called this show Hope for Healing, because Amy Hardy, you say how you say your name, right, Amy?
That is right.
Amy, I'm going to let Judy do the proper introduction, but when Amy was talking and I was reading through her information, what I found and I got was that everything she does is with hope, to bring hope to people. And we actually met her through another guest, which I'll let Judy do her work on that one as well, because she does the bookings and she ties everything together. But we were introduced to Amy through Brooke. Brooke was on our show a few weeks ago, and what a phenomenal, exciting and vibrant person Brooke is. And really, it just came to me this morning. We should have invited Brooke through this conversation. But as always, this is only the first show we're going to do with Amy. When we have people on our show, they're part of our family now, and we will continue to do our work. And it's really, as Amy and I were saying before, it's really, and Judy agrees, it really is just about bringing information and conversations and bringing hope. So Hope for Healing I really prayed over what the name of the show could be. And Amy brings healing to those that have suffered strokes or brain aneurysms. So this is really going to be a wonderful show. I'm going to let Judy do her intro, her proper intro of Amy. And Amy, we want to thank you for your time this morning, because you're 3 hours away, right?
Just 2.
Oh, 2 hours.
Oh, 2 hours away. So that's not too bad.
No, thank you for having me. I'm so honored to be here and the work that you do, and giving back hope to people and a place where they can go and get resources to hear that they're not alone in their journey. It's just wonderful. So thank you.
Oh, you're very welcome. Thank you so much. We're blessed. We're blessed. So I'm going to let Judy, and then we of course, we have to just spend a few moments reflecting on 9/11, and where we were and how it affected and changed our lives. Because I was reading something on Facebook, which I actually shared to my page, and it's so true. It says, really the important thing is what you did on September 12th. How did you live your life? So I want to just take a few minutes to talk about that. So Judy, go ahead. Thank you for being here this morning, Judy, of course.
Good morning, everyone. ReneMarie and I are very proud to welcome our special guest, Amy Hardy, clinical professor at Idaho State University, speaking about pediatric and adult communication disorders and aphasia. Amy graduated from Northern Arizona University with a master's in communication sciences and disorders in 2001. She received her bachelor's in communication sciences and disorders from Arizona State University in 1996. Amy Hardy provides supervision to graduate students and implements clinical treatment programs for pediatric and adult clients, and has 27 years experience. She belongs to numerous groups such as the Pediatric Feeding Therapist Association, Early Intervention Professionals, Speech, Occupational, and Physical Therapists of America, NICU Professionals, and Pediatric and School Based Therapy, Special Ed, and Healthcare, Therapy Ideas, Jobs, Discussions, and so much more.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're very welcome. You're very welcome. So before we get into the wonderful work you're doing, Amy, I just really want to touch, as we were talking about before, on where you were on September 11th and how it affected you. And you actually have a very interesting story. You were going to reservations, I believe.
Yes, so I did schools for quite some time before I got interested in the medical side of things. I dabbled in it as a student and did my externship medical, but initially I started off in the schools, and I worked in Flagstaff, Arizona in their school district, and there's a reservation near there, and it's called Loop. And then about 45 minutes from that is Talani Lake. And so I served the school there, and then also the Head Starts was my main placement. So on September 11th, I worked with a special ed teacher, and we would take an old beat up school district station wagon out there. And she had called and she was like, "Are we going?" And I was like, "Yeah, we're going." So once, things happened, there was a lot of uncertainty as we drove out there. Like, we could get back and, could there be other things happening? Because we didn't obviously hear the news, but we went and did our work. And that was always such a neat place, and lots of wonderful fry bread to eat out there.
Mm. That's pretty interesting. I mean, I would love to hear more about the reservation. I mean, to me, that's so humbling to be able to really go back to our beginnings, to experience that world. I mean, how did you get connected to them, and what is it like there?
Yes. So the Navajo people is the tribe that was on that part of the reservation, and also some Apache. And so when we drove out there, they needed someone to assist these little children. And initially, when I first started going in the late 90s, blonde hair, blue eyes, those children weren't used to seeing the blonde hair. So they frequently would want to touch my hair or sure, but also I learned to not wear a white shirt, because then they thought I was the dental, because dental would pull up in the van and go to clean their teeth, and it scared the children. It scared them, because you'd have to go in this little van and get your teeth cleaned. And so I learned right away not to wear white. But the teachers out there, if you had a great sense of humor, you fit in with the culture very well. And I was fed extremely well. What
did you eat? What did they feed you?
So they have what's called fry bread. If you've never had it, it's delicious. It's basically the thought of a tortilla, but it's kind of deep fried, and they put beans, and they put like some shredded meat on there, and then lettuce, tomatoes, sour cream. So it's like a taco, but they fed me very well. So, and then in Talani Lake, the little Head Start there was actually in the shape of a hogan. And so this hogan is what people would live in, or they had a separate thing outside of their modern house that was a hogan, and they would do different, things in there. But it was modernized where the children had things, to play. But I learned a lot about the culture, and I was so fortunate early in my career to have a placement out there, because now I can teach students about the different cultures and how to, because Navajo isn't a written language. And they did use the Navajo language through the code talkers in the World War. And so they were paramount in the people of that culture in assisting even in war. So the culture and learning about respect for those cultures, and how to ask people about, what is your ethnicity, or what tribe do you belong to, is very important. And also sensitivity to things like pictures of snakes or owls, and what that means to their culture, and that we can't just pop up a test for speech that has some snakes in there. It would offend their culture. So,
and what was the purpose of your visits there? You were teaching them about traumas, or some children that had traumas or strokes or brain injuries? What was your purpose of attending there?
So I would go out and work with the children with various disabilities, whether that be children diagnosed with autism or fetal alcohol spectrum disorders. At the time, now that's widespread everywhere. That's not, a culture issue. But fetal alcohol spectrum disorders, then even just various speech delays or disorders. If someone has a lateral sound that they might be making or can't say their R's. So widespread across what we did when we were out there, that's for sure. And then teaching their families how to work with them, because we only went out once a week, so we had to really maximize. So we had to train caregivers and train communication partners to model and work on speech and language.
Sorry, my landscaper's outside. Can you hear him?
No.
Okay. So, you know what? It's kind of resonating with me right now is that it doesn't matter what faith you are, it doesn't matter what culture you are, that these types of situations touch people and affect people. And we have to, bring hope to all in the world, not just to one specific type of person. So that's very interesting that you were teaching children or families or Indians that on a reservation. That must have been a memory in time.
Yeah, I mean, those are things you just can't create in books for students, but definitely to have those experiences. I was extremely blessed for the school district to say, this is where we want you to be. I mean, even the children in town in Flagstaff, I still, had lots of work there, but to have that experience and to realize that you're right. It doesn't matter religion, culture. When we have a need, we have a need, and it needs to be met so that people can learn to communicate. And when I say communicate, that doesn't just mean through talking, right? That means through a smile or a wave, and to be able to give that to someone who has lost it or maybe never had it yet or learned how to do it is phenomenal. So I've been blessed to be put in this service position to people. It's just blessed my life every day.
It's truly a blessing when you're doing your purpose and you're doing what you're meant to do, so that's incredible. And that's what September 11th, hang on, there he comes. September 11th was a devastating, horrific event. It just, you couldn't even make that stuff up, like in the movies, right? You were talking about before.
Yeah.
But one of the blessings, the small blessings that came out of it was, and this is what it said on the post that I put on Facebook. I'm going to just read it. Hold on a second. It said, breaking, the best way we could ever honor those lost on 9/11 is to live each day like September 12th. There was no race, gender, or politics side. In the end, the only thing that mattered is each other. America first, Americans first, America first, forever. I mean, and I remember that. I vividly remember.
I do too.
That. And I remember that when it happened, I'm going to let Judy share where she was first. And Judy, you have a very touching story as well, because Andrew, her husband, came this like a flash of being in September 11th. So Judy, would you mind sharing that story? Or
my father had just passed from a hemorrhagic stroke, and my husband Andrew said that he was going to be working on the 106th floor of the World Trade Building on September 11th. And the weekend before that, that prior weekend, He had gone to have his fingerprints. I mean, he had worked on the building from the very beginning when it was being built. And I said to him, you get up in the morning at 4:30. You leave for work at 4:30 in the morning. And if you're going to be a foreman on the 106th floor, you might want to wake me up when you get home at 2 in the morning. I said, you're going to be with me for 2 hours. And it's very difficult, and I can't have you do that. And he said, well, if I turn down this job, I could be out of work. The union could put me out of work for 6 weeks or give me a really bad job. So he really wanted to go. And the discussion went right up until Monday. And on Monday, I said to him, Andrew, I'm finished talking to you about this. The decision you have to make is the job or the marriage. Decide. And everybody that he was working with died because they were told to go up to the roof and there was no help. And they couldn't go down because there was a huge gap. And he was assigned to something else. And the crazy part of this story is because he's so dedicated, that morning, and he didn't tell me he did it for years, that morning, he went to the World Trade Center, to the 106th floor, to tell the guys that he was not taking the foreman's job, that someone else was taking it. He had another assignment, and he told them why he wasn't doing it. And they said, why don't you stay and have coffee with us? And if he stayed to have coffee, he wouldn't be here right now. And he got back, and when he went to the new job, that's exactly when it happened.
Wow.
And he actually started to, when they told everybody in the building on 42nd Street to evacuate the building, he actually started walking back. He got as far as 14th Street, and they stopped him. He couldn't believe that this was happening. He couldn't believe it. And the moral of the story is listen to your wife.
The moral of the story that I get from that is, when somebody's got this deep, unknown passion, for some reason, Judy was very adamant about not, like, she just knew inside of her somehow that he shouldn't go to work. And I think it was bigger than your father, and you just had this internal gauge that said to you, Andrew cannot be there on that specific day.
And there were 3 forces pushing him to the on one position he was on, they said there was going to be a delay of 2 weeks, and then they was going to be working in the World Trade Building. And he could either go home and not get paid for 2 weeks, or he could go back to the union. He went back to the union. Then there was a temporary thing he did for 2 weeks, and then this came up. And then the final whipped cream and strawberries on the cake was when he got to the new job, they said the last 10 men that just arrived should go to the World Trade Building right now. And he said, I just got off that job, and the foreman on the new job on 42nd Street said, hey, no, I need Andy here.
Wow.
Yeah. So, it's crazy. It's so we're blessed that you had that passion for Andrew not to go to work that day, because our whole life would have changed at that particular moment. I remember being at Mary Help of Christians at that particular time. I was the food service director for a Catholic school in my area. And I happened to be up at the statue of Mary when I started to hear the rumblings. And then I remember driving right past. Well, I worked for a food service that took care of, it was a school food service. So all the schools were in a panic because families of children worked in the World Trade. So, and we had Ridgewood School, Hawthorne, we had all the schools right outside of New York. So a lot of the parents did perish or passed away at that. So, we had to go into gear as to what are we going to do to support the process. So my father picked up my children, so I knew they were safe home. They were in St. Anthony's. And, but I remember vividly passing this restaurant called Puzo's in front of me. And I heard God say to me, I want you to hold your how do you call it? With all the faiths, ecumenical service in the town. So I directly went to the mayor, started the process, talked to my priest at my church. We have a big playground where my kids go to school. Everybody was just right on board with it. We had all the faiths come together. We had a prayer. That's why I'll send it to you, Amy, Judy. I don't know if you saw that photo of my mom and me on the press, but that's where we were.
I'm not sure.
That's okay. I'll send it to you guys later on. But that's where we were. We were holding a candle at that prayer service, and we did it 1 year later. So it was challenging. It was sad. It was sad.
I like what you said about, that quote about what you did after that,
Yes.
right? And Judy, I can only imagine for your husband. I mean, a lot of people when they lose, people that they work with, I mean, then you start questioning like, well, why was I spared, right? And then there also is this pressure of now I have to live more fully and do all these things because all of these people, I lost. And then thinking of these children who lost parents and things, and how many lives just impacted, and the reasons behind why it happened is just tragic. If we could just all come together as one world, one people, and be kind, and when you're not getting along with someone, to work it out, communicate. Why it was about things that were just selfish in nature is just unfortunate. Yeah.
We're all people. I love that song From a Distance, where it just says like, we're all brothers. Like, I don't understand. Like, I don't understand what the fighting's about, and that's really important. So it was nice. Thank you both for sharing your memories about September 11th. It was, I don't think it would be fair to stream onto a show without really touching on what's going on around us. And, but I have one more question, Amy. Because in the New York area, it was like, really potent because it was right here, and it was in Philadelphia and Washington. But was it strong? Was there strong noise about it in Ohio?
And this was at this time I was in Arizona, and so even being in the West, it really. When you see something like that, and I remember it playing on the news, and then someone from our church had called and said, did you see what is happening? And so we didn't have the news on at the time, and when we turned it on, and then we knew that I was, traveling to the reservation. And because it was further away, that initial impact, it was more, fear, is this going to come across the country and keep, happening? Because then we heard about the Pentagon, and then we heard about these other places, and then the airplane going down, and then we were like, is it going to just keep marching, this way, these tragedies? So that was part of it, but I will say the respect for what was happening, in that area was just, how can we help? What can we do? And so the outpouring of love really from that. And then, when those people on the Capitol steps sang the, God Bless America, that was profound too. And I think it brought a lot of people to appreciate life more, even far, on the West Coast.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Well, thank you so much. So let's get into talking about your purpose in life. And tell our audience a little bit about, just give us a small bio about yourself, how you navigated to do this pathology work, speech pathology work. I mean, what drew you to it? Talk to us a little bit about that, because, we know you, but our audience doesn't know you. They know you a little bit now that you shared it.
Yes, so I initially was going to be a nurse. I always wanted to be a nurse for Halloween. Every Halloween, I'd dress up as a nurse, and my friends always knew, oh, Amy's just going to be a nurse again. And so at Arizona State at the time, the nursing program was quite full, and, they could only take so many. And so then I saw a flyer, and it said speech language pathology. And most people say, when you hear pathology, do you work with dead people? What do you do? Or do you work with diseases? And no, speech language pathology, when something happens, then we work to work around that part of the brain that's not working. And so I changed my major within a couple minutes after talking to an advisor, and then was on my way. And my externship was in a hospital setting in Flagstaff, Arizona. And if you know Flagstaff, we're close to the Grand Canyon. And before that time, they hadn't built that glass bridge, that you could go out and look. And so people would get close to the edge and for pictures. And the rock in the Grand Canyon is limestone, and it kind of crumbles. And so I was working with in the hospital there, and in the ICU, about 7 times a year, we would have injuries from the Grand Canyon.
Wow.
And so my work with neurogenics and traumatic brain injury started initially in that ICU with people that had fallen. One gentleman was in his 60s and had fallen in the bush, caught his shirt. And then they were able to, they had to get a helicopter to pull him, because it's not like you can just reach over and pull someone in, because you'll, could slip on the rock and fall as well. So they have lots of interesting books about the dangers of the Grand Canyon. But so that's where I initially began working with traumatic brain injury. And then I worked in the schools for about 13 years. In mix with the hospital, I still did their pool position. So I, on weekends, I would go in and do Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and work, and then work in the schools. And then my husband was a track and field coach at the time, and he was recruited by Boise State. And so then we thought, he came and did the interview, and they said, do you want to come and see what it's like here before you decide to, uproot your life? And at the time, our little boy was 5. And so I said, no, I trust my husband's judgment, and, and have a strong faith, and know wherever God plants us will grow. And thankfully, with my position and the work that I do, you can kind of, go anywhere. Lots of people need help communicating. And so we thought, well, off we go. So now we've landed in Boise, Idaho, and a small suburb of that called Meridian, Idaho. And then I was driving past the freeway one day, and I saw our health sciences building for Idaho State University, and thought, I need to apply there. Well, I'm clinical faculty, and I have just my master's. There is also what they have academic faculty that have their doctorate degree. Well, at the time, they'd only had a position open for the doctorate. And I thought, well, I'm just going to put my name in the hat anyway, just so maybe they can see, the diverse people that I've worked with, from children to adults, and that And so they hired me in what they call an adjunct. And so that meant that I would just teach a class. And at the time it was on language disorders. And so I started teaching that. And then they said, maybe you should start supervising some of our students in the clinic as well. And then a position came open that was for my a master's level. And so in 2011, I was hired by Idaho State University. The primary reason I was hired was because our online students have to come on campus for a rotation of some kind. And so they said, we want to do more adult neurogenics because trying to get into the hospitals sometimes is really challenging. And with today, the pandemic, it's hard. It was initially, but now hospitals are going, we'll have them wear their PPE, and thankfully most of those medical settings are opening back up for students to get experience. But they said, we really need an adult neuro. And they said, we know that you did hospitals for multiple years and even in that pool position. And initially I thought ill-equipped, but then I thought, this will be real opportunity to be able, I've always been very interested in the communication partner side as well. So not only the client going through and meeting and having them meet their goals and needs and get them communicating again and giving them hope, but also hope for the communication partners. And so we've worked really hard in our program to then educate our students as well about here's what's happening to the communication partners. And so this program, we call it the intensive adult program, the Meridian Intensive Adult Program. So we call it MyApp for short. But it is a 1 or 2 week program, and clients come for 6 hours a day for 5 days a week. And they can do a 2 week rotation, but also it meets the need of our online students who come from all across the country to then work with adult neurogenics and get experience. And so, that's where I'm currently at. And then in the fall and the spring, I run a little communication preschool group and supervise students for children that have autism or are not communicating fully and completely, or, need their sounds or things. But then a lot of my work from the fall, spring, summer pours into just, that 2 week program.
Yeah. It's very interesting because each case is probably so different, right? Each person has a different, they're different, they're unique in what their challenges are and how you could help them. How do you navigate through that?
It's about building connections, right? And when these clients come to us, I had one client and came and the daughter said, since he's been coming to this program, he gets out of bed every day. Right. And then I've had, all of them I feel now are my, good friends, but I always call them our seasoned saints because, time and time again, they come back and they work so hard. And every day when they get up and make it to the program, number one, but then they're teaching our students things that, again, just can't be taught in books.
Right.
You can't read about that. And so to get that experience, what they give back to us and to our students is just profound, but they are so very individual, and you have to step back and listen to their story. And some come very depressed and very broken. And one gentleman, I was telling Judy, we had a young gentleman with us, and I had told the family that the mother had called because she said, hey, I heard about your program. I know you can do some amazing things. And right now, our, son can only use thumbs up, thumbs down. And the nurses said that's all he's going to be able to use. And this was a traumatic brain injury experience.
Wow.
And so he came to us and we got him an AAC, device. And right away, because he was a young gentleman, we said, we found out from the family what kind of vocabulary. And they said, well, he did cuss, prior to the injury. And so we put some cuss words in there.
Yeah. Yeah, because you want to tap into the memory part of it. You want to tap in to see whether he can, what's going on in his brain. What will work? What can you gravitate towards?
Yeah. And once he got those expletives in there, he was communicating and making his own pages on that device. And now he's back going to school and things again. And that's a story of a young gentleman. And then we have, older. I have a great couple that's, just a phenomenal couple. And they live in a very small trailer here in Idaho, out in the middle of nowhere. And every time they come back and just work so hard. And I can always call them if I can't fill a slot in our program and say, can you come back and teach our students some more? But every time there's change in the data that we collect and the things that we look at with them. Right now, the research going is trying to look at, is that program impactful when it's comprehensive and very small for that small amount of time? Or does it make a difference, over time? And it's really hard to measure and really not, it's tough to put numbers on those things that, the university, the research wants those numbers, but it's hard to encapsulate the different lives, the different people, and that's what it's about. So at the end of the day, if the research isn't there, if the data isn't being collected, it's about impacting lives for, number one, those clients, number two, those communication partners, and then number three, for our students.
Wow, that's incredible. I heard you mention something before. I mean, share with the audience, what is language disorder? Like, what would you consider language disorder? Yeah, and I'm sure there's many different factors as well.
That is true. So we as speech language pathologists, we break language down. First, to define language, it's a use of symbols and or codes used among people to express meaning. And so, but what happens, in order to be able to express meaning, you also have to comprehend it. So we look at receptive language, that comprehension piece. And sometimes with neurogenic disorders, whether that be a traumatic brain injury, a stroke, so something that might be acquired language disorder from an injury or something happening in the brain or an accident, those things that are acquired, then we work to equip someone. And when I say communicate, then I'm talking about not just verbal language, but sometimes they, might have weakness on the side of the face. And we had one lady, she would smile a lot. And it was just a neurogenic response. And so we had to teach her, because when she would want to say, no, I don't want that, and she would be smiling, then it was like, no, we've got to be like, make your angry face. And so that language, so that receptive side, but then also the expressive side. And again, language disorders can be from children diagnosed with autism to then something that's congenital or Down syndrome that they're born with, and then it could also be acquired.
One of the things that Judy will confirm, what we love, the reason we connected with Amy, Judy, right, was because Brooke spoke about going to this program that was in colleges, right? That because we always talk about like insurance, insurance runs out and you don't have any more insurance to cover
And
your,
it shouldn't be the deciding factor in a recovery.
right.
Yes, and so our program, thankfully, we have two main hospitals in our area, and so all of those pathologists in there, and even now they're really their rehab team knows that we're here. So generally, insurance gives about 5 sessions or 6 sessions, and then that's it to adults.
That's right.
It's not, and that, I mean, you can't even, just think about going to school 5 days and then that's it, and you move to the next grade. I mean, that's just not enough. And so our program, we've designed it to say, number one, by having it for a long amount of time, then we can really figure out what people's needs are. And then when they attend our fall and spring, which is 2 times a week for, 50 to 60 minutes, like a typical kind of rehab program, then we already know what the needs are because we've spent a lot of time together that summer. But it is meeting the needs of those that run out on insurance. So we have a sliding fee scale. At the same time, Dr. Victoria Sharp works with me, and she has written a grant, and she wrote just an internal grant and was able, and for adult, neurogenics, it's tough to have people give a lot of money to pour in. With children, with hearing impairments or things, it's easier sometimes to get grants, but with adult neurogenics, it's tough. And so she got an internal C grant that ISU gave us, and this past summer, we were able to provide 2 weeks free to clients. And so, but our sliding fee scale, I mean, it goes anywhere from, whatever they can pay, $5 a session to, to not very expensive. I think we top out at probably $25 a session, but it is a sliding fee scale.
Which is at least affordable. You know what I'm saying? Because, that's our foundation. The third mission statement on our foundation is to help those that their insurance has run out. You are always looking for ways to navigate people, and this is one of the great programs that.
Amy, do other universities offer this?
There are,
across the United States?
I tell people to check with their local universities, because even if they don't offer the intensive program, they definitely need clients for their students to learn. So if they have students, on campus and an on-campus clinic, then most likely they need clients that have disorders. And so, and because we're doing research, most often then those fees can be changed or waived or scholarshiped. And so your local universities, yes, reach out to them, because they could very much, when your insurance runs out, pick you up as a client. And we're talking even 7-8 years post-stroke.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I don't know about any, I'm sure brain traumas is the same as strokes. But I don't, not a doctor, so I don't know. But I know that once you've experienced something like a stroke, it is an ongoing challenge every day. Some days are better than others. I'm 30 plus years out of my major stroke, but I think my brain has a little defragmented by now. I've been blessed to fully utilize my mind and my speech. But I'm just saying, like, every day it's different. I mean, with everybody, every day is different,
Yes,
Really,
and that's what I tell them initially. It's going to be tough trying to get your brain to reroute around those damaged areas. But one day you will see, because generally what happens is they go, well, that person, they sound so much better than I do, or they're way better off, And then I'm like, you keep working at it, because your brain has the power to reroute and jump over that damaged area and build
Have to
neurons
be
around that.
right. You have to be willing to work hard at speech and speech therapy and every therapy that you're involved in. You have to put a lot of time into it, and you have to have motivation to get better, and you can and will get better. We've seen many patients get much better, to the point where you never believed that they had any problem in the first place.
Yeah. It's just been profound. Even those that are, come back to us in their 8 years post-stroke. We had a gentleman before he had his stroke. He wasn't great about reading, and now that he's been working so hard, his reading is better now after his stroke than it was before.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's incredible. That's incredible. Let's see. Okay. So, it's so interesting. I was thinking about something because our next guest is in the waiting room. So what hope? I know that let's round this show off, because we only have a few more minutes, and we're going to continue to work with you, Amy. I hope that you'll join us.
I am so excited about getting the word out. And it's not just about Idaho State, it's about all those other universities out there that are training clinicians.
Clinicians. Because honestly, what was going through my brain, and I forgot because she was coming in, was, Judy, I would like to prepare a letter so that we could we use your college or university as a sample? Would that be okay? We're not,
Yes.
we don't want to,
Oh, for sure.
Respect anybody, but
yes, for sure. And I've talked to the university, and they said, you're the expert in this area, so you go.
Yeah. Okay. So we want to work with Amy to maybe colleges don't know that this is possible. And that way we could actually work on our third mission statement. And this could be the way that we could help them to find another avenue, and then we could share it with stroke hospitals, so the hospitals know, that this is an area that, when they're finished their insurances, then they could navigate towards them, the college.
Yes, the word needs to get out that it's not over. And there was a case this summer. She had been 3 years post-stroke, and then because of the pandemic, she didn't have internet. And then we figured out a way this summer. I brought her on campus, and our students had to be telepractice, but I had her on campus working. Well, she made enough gains, and they took our data, and she's now back in the hospital outpatient clinic getting therapy again, because they were able to prove to insurance that gains were still being made. So then she'll come back again to us, and she may choose to go back again and back again, but at some point also they start to go, wow, your students are learning cutting edge research. They are learning about the evidence-based practices that are right here, right now. And our hospital therapists, they, some of them have, they continue their education, but definitely these students are so bright and new. And so clients go, gosh, I'm learning a lot too, because they're learning a lot with the students, and then they hear us as supervisors teaching the students, and then they learn too. So it's just a really great way to give back to the community, but also to build student clinicians. And you're right, it would be phenomenal if people knew after they've had a stroke and they only get 6 sessions or no sessions because they don't have insurance, that they could go to their university or nearby university and get assistance.
Very important.
Mhm.
That's such a blessing. We're so honored to have had you on the show. And we hope to continue working with you. And Judy, why don't you set up another show with Amy and Brooke, like,
Yes, I will.
3 months out, so that we could do our work in publicizing it to the colleges so that they could tune in to hear more information about this important project, this important work that
Definitely.
Amy is doing. I think that would be the next step for all of us. And honestly, we could possibly invite our next guest, Carletta.
Yes,
Carletta.
Carletta.
She also had, she also runs an organization for aphasia as well. So we're going to get to learn a little bit more about her story after this. So
I look forward to continuing watching the path of hope that you ladies and ReneMarie and Judy, I just can't thank you enough for your advocacy and for the hope that you bring to people with neurogenic disorders and for having me on today. I've just had.
You're part of our family now.
Yay.
And by the way, in the future, we're going to meet at some big stadium, and we're going to need the entire stadium, maybe Yankee Stadium or whatever. And Renee's going to fill it all up with our family members, and you're one of them.
Well, I would love that, and virtual hugs for now, but boy, I cannot wait to meet you ladies. You're just phenomenal, and thank you.
I'll be talking to you this week, one evening.
Okay.
Thank you so much to both of you. I'm not going to say goodbye because we're going to continue this work, but we always blow kisses, Amy. So, and then if you could put your videos on, shut your videos off and put it on mute once again, and we'll just backtrack the same way we got in. And then I'll let Charlotta in. And so
Carletta.
Carletta, sorry. So on 3, we always blow kisses. 1, 2, 3. Bye, everybody. See you in a few.
God bless you all.
God bless.
Yo no sé qué tú piensas, yo no sé lo que haré, yo no sé lo que estoy perdiendo, yo no sé lo que va a pasar. No me puedes escuchar llorar solo sin ti, no me puedes oír llorar. El día que caminaste por la puerta, todas las memorias fueron. Mi corazón está vacío, como si tuviera ayer. No me puedes escuchar llorar solo sin ti. Mi corazón está sufriendo. No me puedes escuchar llorar solo sin ti. No me puedes oír llorar. Usted está en mi sueño por la noche. Por favor, no peleemos. Es tan difícil para mí y para ti. Yo, ¿qué puedo hacer? No me puedes escuchar llorar solo sin ti. Mi corazón está sufriendo. No me puedes escuchar llorar solo sin ti. No me puedes oír llorar. No me puedes escuchar llorar solo sin ti. Mi corazón está sufriendo. No me puedes escuchar llorar solo sin ti. No me puedes oír, no me puedes escuchar. No me puedes escuchar dejaré. Yo no sé lo que estoy perdiendo. Yo no sé lo que va a pasar. No me puedes escuchar llorar solo sin ti. No me puedes oír llorar. El día que caminaste por la puerta, todas las memorias